Hi everybody, this is Emily from Kid Lit Book Love. Thanks for watching my channel. I'm going to review two absolutely fabulous books for you in just 1 second. First, a little preview, Mary Downing Hahn's Old Willis Place. This book will be an exclusive Facebook only review. I'll be posting this coming Tuesday night. This will conclude my October month horror, gothic, supernatural review of my select titles in children's literature. This book is incredible. You'll definitely want to check out that video. Also, a little sneak peek, one thing I'm reading now, The Scandalous Sisterhood of Prick Willow Place. This is a fabulous book. It's kind of a mystery, Agatha Christie style, about some very unusual girls that live together in this kind of boarding school. And even more exciting than that is The School of Good and Evil, Book 1 by Soman Shanani. This is definitely a fantasy. This will be covered in my fantasy unit. So I'm in the first book now, has some fairy tale fantasy elements. It's an incredible book. So if anybody wants to see a review about this, please mention so in the comments below. Okay, let's talk about the gems for the day, which is Ray Bradbury's A Halloween Tree and The Charmed Children of Rookskill Castle by Janet Fox. So much to say about these books. I don't even know where to start. Let's talk about Ray Bradbury's A Halloween Tree. If you haven't read it, like I had not prior to, well, 2 days ago, I was blown out of my chair. This book was stunning. Like stunning is the only way I can describe this book. The writing was eloquent and gorgeous and genius. The Halloween Tree is technically, let me look up my notes, technically listed supposedly, and it was done, by the way, in 1972 for grade 3 to 7, ages 8 to 12. Although anyone who knows Ray Bradbury, who's read Something Wicked This Way Comes, The Martian Chronicles, or Fahrenheit 451, knows that since it is technically considered classic literature, classic writing, it reads more adult-ish. So I would say this definitely might be difficult for, I mean, forget it. Grades 3 to 7, grade 3 and 4 is definitely out of the question unless it's being read to them. So first of all, some interesting facts about Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury was actually very, very good friends with Walt Disney. And Ray Bradbury was involved in the building and design and building of in Walt Disney World, Florida, Epcot Center, the Earth, like when you, I don't know if you've been to Epcot Center, but when you first go into Epcot Center, there's the big like Earth globe thing with like their Planet Earth ride and display. And there's like a whole story behind that of the evolution of people. Ray Bradbury was behind the story behind that and the design. He did that with Walt Disney, which is, I didn't know that either. So I thought that was fascinating when I read his documentary. Read his biography and watched his documentary. And also, more interesting, since he wrote The Martian Chronicles, which is science fiction, Ray Bradbury always wanted to, he always said one day he wants to be buried, have his ashes in a soup can sent to Mars. Well, that maybe didn't happen, but he was honored by NASA when the Mars, I guess the rover, was it the first in 2012, which is shortly after Ray Bradbury died. The landing spot of the Mars rover, I think it was the Mars rover, named the spot Bradbury Landing after Ray Bradbury because of his, contribution to classic science fiction in American literature, The Martian Chronicles. All right, so Ray Bradbury, The Halloween Tree. Oh my God, I love this book. It was so beautiful that I had to take like notes on every single page and mark up all my pages. Okay, so this book really is from the perspective of a boy named Tom Skelton. They call him Tom Skeleton. Takes place on Halloween or All Hallows Eve, and it kind of stems back to the origin of All Hallows Eve. And it is probably the most quintessential writing I've ever seen in my life that describes the feel of an authentic olden time Halloween, even back to the days when we were kids. For me, it would be the 1980s, like what Halloween was like as a kid, but even way further beyond that. I mean, the streets felt to me like anyone who's a fan of Hocus Pocus, the movie, the Halloween streets during the kind of felt like that. Like, who's going to see Halloween like that this year, particularly, right? But the book is really listed as spine-chilling horror, and it definitely has some elements of terror horror through some kind of grotesque images of certain things, a little bit that causes fright and whatnot. But it has a little bit of magic and time travel, or kind of more like, I don't know, like, I guess you would call it teleportation, but so these boys, they head out on Halloween night, and they come across this kind of Halloween house where there's this magic Halloween tree, and then all this magic starts happening from then on, and like they become kind of merged with like a kite, and they can fly above, and looking down they can see other times in history and other lands like ancient Egypt. And regardless of the story, though, what the thing about this book that makes it worth reading, that classifies this truly as literature, is the writing. Ray Bradbury has a way of describing anything to make you feel like you are there. I mean, you're not only there, you can smell it, see it, taste it, hear it, and it's happening all around you. But his writing is gorgeous. Let me read you the first paragraph. It was a small town by a small river and a small lake in a small northern part of a Midwest state. There wasn't so much wilderness around that you couldn't see the town. But on the other hand, there wasn't so much town you couldn't see and feel and touch and smell the wilderness. The town was full of trees and dry grass and dead flowers, now that autumn was here, and full of fences to walk on and sidewalks to skate on and a large ravine to tumble in and yell across. And the town was full of boys. And then it goes into talking about the preparations for Halloween night. I thought the descriptions were really beautiful. Tom Skelton shivered as he put on his bones. Anyone could see that the wind was a special wind this night, and the darkness took on a special feel because it was All Hallows Eve. Everything seemed cut from soft black velvet or gold or orange sheets of velvet. Smoke panted up from 1,000 chimneys like the plumes of funeral parades. From kitchen windows drifted 2 pumpkin smells, gourds being cut, pies being baked. The cries behind the locked house doors grew more exasperated as shadows of boys flew by windows, half-dressed boys, grease paint on their cheeks. Here a hunchback, there a medium-sized giant. Attics were still being rummaged, old locks broken, old steamer chests disemboweled for their costumes. What I like is even the choice of words he uses to describe things match the tone of the book. This eerie, crisp, cold, dark Halloween environment, All Hallows Eve night. And one of my favorite passages, the ravine, filled with varieties of night sounds, lurkings of black ink, stream and creek, lingerings of autumns that rolled over in fire and bronze and died 1,000 years ago. From this deep place sprang mushroom and toadstool and cold stone fog and crawdad and spider. There was a long tunnel down there under the earth in which poisoned waters dripped, and the echoes never ceased calling, come hither now. And once you come hither, you'll stay forever. So no child in this modern day is going to appreciate the writing in this book. I would recommend this book to high school and adult personally. I mean, middle school, fine, but they're going to only be enraptured by the story, not by the incredible writing, the incredible descriptions of everything, even especially like when they're, you know, they come across this house that has this, oh, let me show you, there's an illustration. There's a couple of illustrations in this book. As well. Here's an illustration of the house they come across, the Halloween house, with this tree. And the tree, as they come across the tree, it lights up, and hanging from the branches are pumpkins, gourds, and they have grotesque, all of them have different faces that change and alter, and then all this magic starts happening. So it was really very, 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 very riveting and fascinating, and I love it so much. It's the kind of book like kind of like every year at Christmas, first night after we decorate for Christmas, we watch Christmas with the Cranks every year. So I can see this book every Halloween. You just read it because you want to really get the feel of the spirit of Halloween. All right, so let's move on to The Charmed Children of Rookskill Castle by Janet Fox. What do I have to say about this? This book was, let me double check my notes, 2017. It's definitely newer. Ages 10 to 12, supposedly, whatever grade that would be. Definitely, or older, in my opinion. It's a well-plotted thriller. It's technically considered spine-chilling horror, but I recommend this book. And you can see it's a really big book. No pictures, nothing like that, no illustrations. But it has a little bit of many different genres in one book. So it's a great book for teaching the different genres, you know, Gothic, horror, terror, paranormal, supernatural. There's even a mystery that they have to solve throughout, and I'm sorry, a quirky sci-fi ending that, well, I'll get to that in a minute without giving it away. So the plot behind this book is takes place during World War II and during the Blitz back in London, when London was getting the heck bombed out of it. A lot of kids were sent away to Scotland and Wales and Ireland, and this takes place in Scotland. These kids get sent away. Their dad's in the war. They don't really say what happens to the mom. She puts them on the train and then vanishes. But they get sent off to this kind of boarding school in Scotland that is the Gothic setting. And it has a lot of Gothic, as you can even get a feel from the cover. This creepy, you know, Gothic, broken down, cold, eerie, open plain moors that also have like it's constant fog, constant mist. It's got the kind of creepy setting to it, the doom and gloom, the parents, the kids that don't have parents or guardians on their own, they have to kind of save the day. So there's the Gothic in there, but it definitely has supernatural elements. So, you know, these kids get there, they check in, but it's all from the perspective of the oldest girl, Catherine, who has magic powers. So there is some fantasy magic in here. And strange things start happening. Other kids start vanishing from the school. And so, you know, they think there's a ghost, and there's a lot of exploration in this book, and they go around exploring, you know, passageways and the undergrounds and the catacombs, and then a lot of supernatural, paranormal, weird things happen. So there's definitely those aspects in there. There's some few pretty scary scenes, you know, that come and go quickly. But but it's interesting because this is one of those books that rotates back and forth from perspectives of the protagonist and the antagonist. And Lady Eleanor, she's the headmistress. It turns, you know, she's basically several hundred years old. She's charmed. She's bad. They make that clear right up front, so it's not a secret. But the book weaves back and forth between, you know, a couple hundred years ago, what happened to her life, how she became bad, and basically she gets her age, her immortality, thank you, her immortality by taking the souls of children from the boarding school over these hundreds of years, and that's why they go missing. And so so it kind of goes back and forth though between her perspective of how she's going to take this kid and do this, and then from the kid's perspective who have to save the day. There's only one thing I did not like about this book. The book was very gripping, very suspense, thriller style. The chapters are short, but at the very end, which is supposed to be the climax, turns out, you know, they threw in this sudden by the way, there's this constant kind of Nazi theme in here too. There's some of the teachers are Nazi spies in here, but they threw in the climax. It's revealed something that ties into the bad parts of it, the antagonist parts, that is completely science fiction, like robotic, like mechanical machine type creature thing. And it's like it totally threw. I think the author could have done better ending it without putting that in there, like just left it more with the charmed and the magic and the spell and stuff. But suddenly there's this like robot machine type creature there at the end that's just like came out of nowhere when the rest of the book wasn't like that, and it was very out of place. I thought it's the only part I didn't like, and I thought it was like kind of ruined part of the ending for me. I mean, that I'm not gonna say what happens, but really the book is definitely worth the read. And it was, if you like big castle fantasy magic, kind of the dark themed books, I definitely would recommend this. And you know, again, the chapters are pretty short. I mean, here's one chapter that's only 2 pages. I take notes on all of my books. Chapters are really short, so you don't feel like they're an endless amount of long chapters. The chapters, the parts that are only 2 pages are when you're from the perspective of the lady, the headmistress. But then the longer chapters are from the perspective of the kids. So I would definitely recommend it for sure. It was pretty fascinating. I just didn't like the ending. So, but that's just my perspective. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to check out my other videos posted today and my Facebook videos. Have a great day.